All right, today we are jumping into a topic that seems so small, but believe me, it is absolutely critical in construction. We're talking about handrail height. And let me tell you, getting this one little detail wrong can be one of the most expensive and frustrating mistakes you can make on a job site. So let's break it down.
So let me ask you a question. What's the single costliest 2-inch mistake you can make in construction? I'll give you a hint. It involves stairs, and it's an error that can literally shut down your project, cause failed inspections, and cost you thousands in rework. You guessed it, it's getting that handrail height wrong.
So here's what we're going to cover. We'll look at why this is such an expensive mistake. Then we'll clear up the crucial difference between a handrail and a guard. This is key. We'll get into the magic 34 to 38-inch rule, touch on the different codes and their exceptions, and then wrap up with the top 5 violations we see all the time so you can avoid them. Look, failing a building inspection for handrail height isn't just a slap on the wrist. It's a real headache. It often means you're tearing out finished work, maybe refabricating custom metal, and then you've got to get back in line for another inspection. All the while, your schedule is shot and your budget is taking a huge hit. It's a nightmare that's actually pretty easy to avoid if you just know the rules.
Okay, so before we get into any of the numbers, you have to understand one core concept. It's the fundamental difference between a handrail and a guard. I'm telling you, confusing these two is the #1 source of all the problems.
And really, when you break it down, the difference is super simple. A handrail is for one thing, for you to grab onto for support. Its whole purpose is stability. A guard, on the other hand, is there to stop you from falling off an edge. It's a barrier. And this tiny difference in purpose changes everything, especially how and from where we measure their height.
So let's be super clear. A handrail is all about something you can hold. The code is obsessed with one word: graspable. If you can't securely wrap your hand around it when you stumble, it's not doing its job. It's not a real handrail, no matter how good it looks. Now a guard? Totally different story. Just think of it like a little wall. Its job is to be a physical stop that prevents a fall. That's it. That's why it's measured from the floor and why it has to be much higher, usually at least 42 inches tall, to actually work.
And here it is. This is the big aha moment that trips up so many people. A 42-inch guard is way too high to be a comfortable, safe, or graspable handrail. It's just not. This single fact is exactly why you so often see 2 separate rails on commercial stairs: the tall guard at the edge for fall protection and a second, lower handrail for actual support.
Okay, so now that we're clear on the difference between a handrail and a guard, what's the right height for that handrail? Well, it all comes down to hitting what I like to call the magic window for compliance.
This is it, 34 to 38 inches. Write that down. And this isn't just some random number. It's all about ergonomics. It's the perfect height that lets an average person keep their arm at a natural angle and get the most leverage to catch themselves if they trip. And the best part? This range works for pretty much every code out there: IBC, IRC, and ADA.
But how you measure is just as critical as what you measure. You have to start from the nosing of the stairs, the very front edge of each step. Then, and this is crucial, you measure vertically, straight up and down, plumb. You do not measure perpendicular to the slope of the stairs. That's a classic, costly mistake that'll make your rail fail inspection every time.
So you've got the 34 to 38-inch rule down, but that's not the whole story. The code gets a little more detailed depending on the building's use. So you always have to ask yourself one simple question: who am I building this for? A private house or a public space?
Okay, this chart lays it all out perfectly. Notice that the height range, our magic window, is identical across the board. The real differences are in the details. See there? For a residential home, handrail extensions at the top and bottom are optional. But for commercial or accessible buildings, they are absolutely required. Same thing for having rails on both sides.
So bottom line, if you're working on a single-family home or a duplex, the International Residential Code, the IRC, cuts you a bit of slack. Generally, you don't need to add those horizontal extensions at the start and end of the staircase, which can definitely make things a bit simpler.
But, and this is a huge but, the second you step into a commercial building, an apartment complex, or any public space under IBC or ADA rules, those extensions become completely non-negotiable. They're a critical safety feature, and leaving them out is a guaranteed fail.
And what happens when you have 2 different codes telling you to do 2 different things, like in a warehouse where you have building codes and workplace safety rules from OSHA? Well, the rule is simple. The strictest standard always wins. Always. If one code says 30 inches and another says 34, you build to 34. End of story.
All right, time for a quick pop quiz. Let's run through the most common mistakes people make so you can spot them a mile away and make sure they don't happen on your project.
First up, the big one we've been talking about. You've just installed a beautiful, super sturdy 42-inch guardrail. Can it also count as your code-compliant handrail?
That's going to be a big, fat no. Remember, a guard is a barrier. It's way above the 38-inch maximum height for a handrail. It's just too high to grab safely for support. You need a separate rail in that 34 to 38-inch magic window.
Okay, next question. You're on a commercial job. The deadline is looming. Those handrail extensions at the top and bottom of the stairs, are they really necessary, or are they more of a friendly suggestion?
Nope. Not a suggestion, not a nice to have. They are 100% mandatory safety features in any building that falls under IBC or ADA rules. Skipping them is one of the fastest ways to fail your inspection and get hit with that costly rework.
So to wrap this all up, here's a simple checklist to get it right every single time. First, ask what is its job. Is it a handrail for support or a guard for fall prevention? Second, stay in the magic window, 34 to 38 inches. Third, always measure vertically from the stair nosing. Fourth, know your code. Do you need extensions? And finally, make sure the thing is actually graspable.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? Getting the code right isn't just about checking a box for an inspector. It's about building spaces that are fundamentally safer, more comfortable, and more accessible for every single person who uses them. So the real question is, how can we start thinking about these details not as rules we have to follow, but as opportunities to create genuinely better spaces for everyone?